Coming live for you straight from lockdown in South Wales. It's Jared Walters here with the Now Debate. And as normal, I am sat with my good old friend from Pontypridd, Mr. Richard Oliver. How are you doing today, Richard?
I am good, Bert.
And today we are going to be discussing a place where you do not want to be in lockdown, the SkinWalker Ranch.
No, you don't.
You don't want to be down in lockdown there.
No, you don't.
You don't. So, I'm sorry about the confusion with the time, guys. If you are, hopefully you will be joining us in the chat. Richard, just make sure we can hear you a second on the mic, please.
Can you hear me? Yes.
Yeah.
1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2.
We can hear you. We can hear you loud and clear, my friend. So, I don't really know much about this one, right? This is one that I have kind of tried to get into, but never really been able to sort of get my head around, or been able to sit down and literally go through. You apparently and your other half have been doing some tremendous research on this, and apparently you're going to take us through a bit of a talk tonight, and we're going to debate the SkinWalker Ranch and some of the crazy stuff that has made this place so infamous. Am I correct?
Yes.
Am I correct there?
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Basically, all this information has been lovely typed out and printed off by Emma Adamick, who is part of Paranormal now, and she does the research, and she is my guide to the internet, because I am absolutely useless. so she does all the hard work. I just look good on YouTube. Bless her. So, yeah, I go, well, it is the biggest paranormal investigation ever conducted.
It is basically the Area 51 of the paranormal. Before we start on today's discussion, is there any other news items or updates that you want to cover for the time being?
Well, no, not really, because in light of everything that's been going on, I thought we'd have a coronavirus-free Now Debate.
Right.
If that's possible.
Yes, let's get on with it. I'm just going to sit back and I'm going to let you speak. And I know you've been doing a lot of research into this, so I'm just going to sit there, let you speak, and I just want to say hello to everyone on the chat, and hello from Sunderland, England. Hello, Sean. Okay, so let's get to it then, Rich.
Well, right. Basically, this is, SkinWalker Ranch. It is based in Uinta County, Utah. It is known as the Sherman Ranch, right? There are many mysteries involved in this place. There's been UFO sightings, cattle mutilation, crop circles. There's talk of the Navajo witches, which are known as the Skinwalkers, where it famously gets its name from. The ranch is 480 acres. It's situated 3.5 miles southwest of Duchenne. I'm sorry if I don't get these words right, but I will try my best. Fort Duchenne, on the border of Utah-India Reservation. Uinta Valley Reservation was created in October of 1861 by the executive order of President Abraham Lincoln. The Ouray Reservation was created in January 1882. These two merged together in 1886 to become the Uinta and Ouray Reservation. For over 150 years, the Utah lived the Ute. I think I'm saying this right. They're called the Ute. Okay, they were basically a tribe of Indians, and they lived there for 150 years. The Indians believed the bordering ranch was the path of the skinwalkers and were forbidden to go there, right? Well, basically, the gist of it is that the Navajo cursed the land, and their witches would become these shape-shifting skinwalkers. The Ute, they took this as gospel, right? they were, you know, this is an ancient people with an ancient culture, and there's lots of mysticism about these cultures, and when something like this was put out there, they took it quite seriously.
Can I ask a question, or do you want me to wait until the end?
No, yeah, ask a question.
Because this is what's really intrigued me, because the word skinwalker, it's quite a provocative word, and it's one of those words that to me evokes like a lot of, like, I don't know, it provokes the imagination in a sense. So what is a skinwalker, and I know do you know anything about that, or has that come up in your research?
Yes, it has. Well, basically, they were witches. They were Navajo witches, and they I'll just get a little report now of it. Because the Navajo and the Utah, basically, they fought together, right? But the Ute really betrayed the Navajo, and they started abducting them and selling them to the Spanish in slave markets, and they were trading them for horses and things like that. And during the Civil War, the Ute joined forces with Kit Carson in a military campaign against the Navajo. And there's a thing called the Long Walk of the Navajo, because basically they were exiled and forced to New Mexico, and the trail is called the Long Walk of the Navajo. And they were allowed then, the tribe was allowed to return 7 years later. The Ute believed that Navajo cursed them because of this earlier transgression. Let's have a look at the description of the skinwalkers. Basically, they were a body of a human with the head of a dog.
Okay.
There was some believed that they were like these creatures. They were shapeshifters basically, and they can become these like demonic-looking creatures. I mean, it's the descriptions, and these descriptions are going back a long time. The witches would sort of like wear skins of animals, and they could be a human and wear the skin of an animal.
Yeah.
So the reports going back through history are bizarre.
Okay.
But the sort of start of it, the skinwalkers, is the Navajo, and they had these witches, and they would become these creatures, these skinwalkers. And they have like superhuman speed and superhuman abilities. So yeah, it is quite the name, isn't it, Skinwalker?
Yeah,
it is quite.
I thought that was cool because, like, whenever talks about they always talk about is it the Gorman family? That's obviously I don't want you to jump ahead, because I know
it's the Sherman family.
Sherman family, is it right?
Sherman family, yeah. It's called the Sherman Ranch.
Because the family that it's normally the family that they tell a story about, but they don't go much into like the history of the land. Whenever I've seen like breakdowns of the story, they've always talked about the land was cursed, but it's that the fact it links back obviously to the Civil War and those sort of times then, and as you said, the slave trade with the Spanish. Now that's quite interesting, because there's obviously like a lot of sort of superstition and that sort of thing involved in that. So yeah, that's to be honest, but that's interesting, because there's stuff that we don't really get to see when you look at the normal stuff that we see on Skinwalker Ranch. The history of it.
You don't get to see the real history of it. And like Emma went back, she did a research going right back. I mean, I'll get to it in a minute, but basically the youth believed that the skinwalkers were present back 15 generations, and they lived in a place called the Dark Canyon, which is located next to the ranch. The reports of the skinwalkers, I got the descriptions, but accounts, they look human with dog heads. Yeah. Others say they were large humanoid creatures. They were fast, and they had, basically, their eyes were always described as being like hot coal. You know when it glows red.
Yeah, yeah.
There's photographic evidence of tracks. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, it's incredible. The Maya family, I think I'm saying that right, took over it in 1903. They occupied the ranch. They built another house on the ranch because there's a new show out called The Secrets of the SkinWalker Ranch. I haven't gone as much into that because the evidence just on what we've got is incredible. The evidence Emma found is just insane. I mean, you know, this is the history of this place.
Yeah.
They built. Let's have a look. They didn't move until 1987. During this time, they made no reports of strange sightings or occurrences, although their neighbours did. Right, which is kind of odd.
Yeah.
Right, because there's so many claims to this place, and we'll see how far it goes back now.
Okay.
This is have I got the right one? Let me find the right. Let me try. I haven't got it mixed up. Yes, I've gone and got my paperwork mixed up. It's okay. I'll find it.
Just want to say hi to RJD. Yes, they did an episode about it. Yes, the Ghost Hunters did do an episode on this. Hi to Sean and hi to Suzanne.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they did. They did. They went to the caves and everything. They did.
Mm.
Well, the guys, there's a thing called the Hunt for the Skinwalker.
Yeah.
And it's the same guy that did the Bob Lazar documentary.
Jared, what's his name?
I can't think of his name.
Jared Ravelli.
Is it Jared?
Yeah,
Ravelli?
I think it's Jared Ravelli. Well, I know Jared Ravelli is the guy who introduces it. I'm not sure if I got his surname completely right, but it's Orchard Films. They're the same guy who did David Icke Renegade, and they did the Bob Lazar film, and I believe they had a hand in Unacknowledged as well. So
well, I just literally finished watching the Hunt for the Skinwalkers.
I bought it last night.
And it is an amazing little documentary.
Yeah, it is. It is quite something.
Yeah. The reports in there, I mean, are incredible. But the earliest report, right,
okay,
of something happening in this place is the 1700s. A group of Spanish explorers spotted a craft in the sky above their campfire. 1700s.
Jesus.
Right, there's the report. I didn't quite get the information on. It's probably in here somewhere of this. It was like a monk who saw stuff on the ranch. There are hundreds and hundreds of UFO sightings.
Okay.
Some have seen fireballs. Others say they've seen craft that are 20 to 30 foot long, round, oval, cigar-shaped, triangular. I tried to say that without sounding like I was from Twin Town. Triangular. But,
triangular.
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 Triangular craft, right? That's also been reported. Some with green lights, some with red beams, others shooting different colours from under their bellies. In the 1970s, there were so many reports being made, the Utah Highway Patrol stopped filing the reports.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cheers, thank you. Sorry, I'm a bit of assistance there because I got lost. Yes, that's incredible. That's incredible.
Yeah.
They stopped. There were so many reports. They stopped filing them. Investigators found around the same time the UFOs were sighted, there was cattle mutilations occurring.
Yeah.
And in that documentary, I mean, there's a cattle mutilation where they find this calf and there's no blood.
No.
And they said this animal had been, somebody had used a metal sharp object to, mutilate this calf, and there's no blood, and it was, precision.
Yeah.
It's bizarre, but one of the strange things about the documentary is the description of these portals.
Right, okay.
And they've been witnessed opening and creatures coming out.
Yeah, like wolves, weren't they?
Well, one of them was the description. This creature sort of brought his arms out of this hole, and these two people witnessed it, and they were up on the mountain, and
Okay.
it came out. It was a black creature, completely black. They said it looked like he had fur. It didn't have. It was no neck, because there's actually been Bigfoot sightings there as well. I mean,
Jesus.
this place has got everything, right? This place has got everything. Yeah, investigators found, like I said, the cat and mutilations.
Yeah.
In 1987, Terry and Gwen Sherman moved into the ranch, right?
Okay.
They found all the windows and the doors deadlocked on the inside and the outside of the house. Even the cupboards were deadlocked. Now that's in a pretty extreme measure.
Well, yeah, absolutely. You know that is to think of why someone would do that, and what is going through someone's mind to actually do that. That's
Well,
insane.
this is the reason, right? This is one of the reasons, right? On their first day in the ranch, they found a large wolf creature, right?
Okay.
In one of the pastures, right? Which attempted to grab a calf, and it tried to pull this calf through the bars, right? So they went up to the creature and they tried to beat it off, right? And he wouldn't let go of the calf, right? They failed. So the guy, right, shot the creature with a .357 Magnum at point blank range, and the animal didn't budge, right? Didn't flinch, right? They shot it again, right? They shot it 4 times, right?
That's not
And the
exactly,
animal...
you know, a 357 Magnum's not exactly a gat, is it? You know, it's
No,
not,
it's not an air rifle, is it?
it's not exactly a pea shooter, like, you know.
No.
That will
Right?
rearrange your face for you. Yeah,
Well,
on a good day.
yeah, right? This thing, and this thing just appeared completely calm, right?
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it walked away after they'd shot it, and apparently there was flesh found on the floor, right? And this bullet had passed straight through this animal, and it didn't even yelp, right? So the animal walked away, so they followed it, right? And they followed the tracks that the animal left behind. And all of a sudden, just out of the blue, the animal disappeared, and so did the tracks, just completely vanished into thin air. Gwen Sherman was in her car, and she encountered a wolf-like creature that was as large, and its back basically was parallel to the top of her window, and it was accompanied by other creatures, right?
Okay.
I mean, yeah, the Shermans, and it says, the Shermans and their neighbours over the years reported various sightings of strange and exotic animals. They were not native to the area. Even creatures that looked like Bigfoot and Sasquatch, right? The other encounters, there was like hyena-looking creatures. They described them being low to the ground, heavily muscled, weighed about 200 pounds, curly red hair, right, bushy tails. Upon approaching the creatures, they just vanish before their eyes. Now, this is something that's coming out of this SkinWalker Ranch a lot, right? And this is in this new series. Like I said, I haven't gone into the new series much because it's new, and I don't want to spoil it for people, and they can go and
Good
watch
idea,
it.
man. And
Right?
yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to get. I will talk about it a bit because some of the stuff they found so far is incredible, but I don't want to. It's really worth a watch. Right, it is narrated though by the guy that does The Curse of Oak Island. I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but thank God he just does a little bit of narration at the beginning.
I've never
Because,
watched The Curse of Oak Island, but
oh
I'm
my
assuming
Lord,
that's...
the narrator will literally, the show could be pretty much 15 minutes, and the other 45 minutes of the show is just him narrating. He is I mean, he can turn a nail. You've got what's his name? He uses the metal detector, right? And if he finds something, he goes, "Ooh, that's a Bobby Dazzler," because he's from the UK. And you go, "A nail? Was that the nail that William Shakespeare had in his cupboard when he travelled across Europe, and then he met a Knights Templar that travelled across, and it just goes on and on. It's just a bloody nail, like it's on an island. Christ's sake, just give it a rest. It's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. That the nail that the Knights Templar used, it's just a nail back. What are you on about?
It just reminds me of like that saying I said to you the other day: when you're writing for the web, just write how Alex Jones speaks. If you're writing so it's easily what they call search engine optimized, you just write like that. It's like, was this the ranch where paranormal activity happened? Skinwalkers, ghosts, UFOs, and everything else. Can we run out after this break? Anyway, carry on.
Honestly, so luckily, like I said, he doesn't rate much of the show, but it is worth a watch, right?
Okay.
Like I said, the reports. And the neighbours have seen these creatures as well, right? There's horses that have had claw marks on their legs, right? The neighbours would later report similar sightings. The Shermans would experience various UFO sightings, strange lights in the sky. They also lost 7 of their best cows, right? 4 disappeared without a trace. 3 were found partially mutilated. I mean, it just goes on and on and on.
It's been a while. It's been a while since I watched Hunt for the Skinwalker, but were they not getting interaction as well with the UFOs?
Well, this is the thing. I mean, the investigation that was done there, right, which I'll try and get into. I've got his name, Robert. What is his name? I've got it written down somewhere.
I tell you what, carry on with
yeah, Robert Bigelow. All right, I'll go into that in a bit now. Right.
Carry on with where you were going. It was just Well,
it's the Sherman family, right? They've gone through just unbelievable things, right? They found the cows with peculiar holes in them, right? They left eyeballs were removed, right? And they were just dropped there. There's no footprints up to these animals, right? They would find these 6-inch holes, right? They would these puncture marks in their eyeballs. Some of their eyeballs were removed, right? Some of them have been completely dissected, right? The mutilations are bizarre, which I gotta be honest, right? Me and Emma had this discussion. I find a little bit sinister.
Yeah.
Because as we know, from the CE5 sort of community, right, and what we've been getting through our little devices and everything else, right, we are giving these beings a spiritual connection, right?
Yeah.
As a whole. But some of the stuff coming out of this is really quite sinister. I mean, these animals have been through some pretty traumatic things,
Yeah.
And it's a little bit disturbing, to be honest with you.
But then I don't think that the beings we are communicating with are the same beings that are like Bob Lazar interacted with in Area 51. They might be of the same kin, but I don't think they are the same. Because you would sense it if they had any malevolent intent. Because you've obviously had direct contact with these beings. I've had direct contact with these beings, not through the boxes or any devices. You would sense this, but I think that could be something worth asking at some point.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's quite sinister, and it's the way. It's not just the fact that the animals were mutilated. I mean, there's the report of the son. He's in the same field. He's looked at one of the cows. He's carried on doing something with his fence, and he's looked back, and the cow's gone, and he's gone over there, and it's been mutilated. I mean, that's pretty. That's a big. If you're seeing that, that's going to cause some problems. Psychological problems. this family went through a bit of a nightmare. It kind of reminds me, which I've been looking for the story about the family in I think it's Texas, and basically they spent the entire night fighting off what they described as like werewolf-looking creatures.
Yeah.
I've been trying to find the story because it has kind of relevance to the SkinWalker Ranch type of stories.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean these are some of the reports, right? They've had these holes cored into them, and they can't explain how these holes have been cored into these animals. It's bizarre. It's bizarre.
Well, we've had it here, but we've had, instances of cattle mutilations, Brecon, Pembrokeshire, North Wales. Richard D. Hall did I think it's UFOs and NATO. He did a documentary on it. I think that's the one that he shows it on. And, we've got a case here in Brecon of human mutilations. Similar sort of thing. Yeah. From the 1970s, I believe, where it was a young couple that turned up with, the very similar sort of things as these cattle mutilations and that sort of thing. And this is the thing: are they being beamed up? Are they?
Well, I was just about to get to that. Right.
Go on.
This is. If I was just reading that as you said that, right? One of the cattle seemed to have magically lifted from the snow, right? Its hoof prints led into a field and then just simply stopped, right? So these things, I mean, yeah, they're being the way I've looked at it, at this SkinWalker Ranch, is either interdimensional, right? So there are either doorways, or the creature they described coming out of this orange glowing hole, 4 foot off the ground, sounds like something that's cloaked, and a door is open to me, right? But yeah, there it is. This cow just walked into a field and was gone. There was no hoof prints. There was hoof prints of it walking, and it's just gone. And they're having reports in the buildings of apples.
But this is my issue, right?
Yeah.
Like, what is it with, like, I know obviously you had other animals, right? You have had, like, chickens and lambs and different things, normally farmyard type animals, right? It's normally sort of livestock animals, yeah? Pigs, lambs, cows, that sort of thing. But, like, I'm trying to sort of, if there's a conscious thought behind this, what does, like, forgive me for being slightly facetious here, right? Why does an ET come to a planet and go, I know what I'm going to do, we're going to take some cows and we're just going to butcher them the wrong way? It's obviously happening because the evidence is there. But what I'm struggling with regards to cattle mutilations is motive.
Yeah, I'm struggling with the same thing, right? I mean, they could be learning about sort of our anatomy, right? Because, I mean, there is reports of this thing happening to people. I mean, there's some really scary reports. I mean, there's that one in Canada with the forest.
Yeah.
And, with the ETs there, and they were eating people, for Christ's sake. I mean, that's pretty damaging. I mean, there's the guy, I can't think of his name off the top of my head. I will do some research on this, but yeah, they just walked into a field and vanished without a trace. There's the ones, I think there's a name for it. I'm sure we've talked about it. It's the people who were hiking in the Himalayas? And they were all mutilated.
Oh, I've got a vague recollection of this.
It could have been.
It's not the Colorado ones, is it, where the kids go missing?
No, it's basically, I think they were German hikers. They were German teenagers. They got up into the mountains and they were found literally...
Like 40 miles, literally...
Yeah, it was in the mountains, and they had abandoned their campsite. There was some found at the campsite, but they'd been mutilated. And these bodies, they said, and the soldiers who went there to try and find these teenagers, they said some of their bodies were dropped into the snow. There was no prints around them. They just were there. There were no prints of theirs leading up to the snow. Same thing. And apparently it really, it psychologically disturbed the soldiers that found these young people.
Now that's where I'm like, I'd like to know if there's like a correlation geographically. If there's something nearby, because this, to me, I would look at it more being some sort of psychological operation, because we slaughter God knows how many cattle per day, right?
Yeah.
Literally, like, on the thousands. You know, the two biggest food industries, like, on planet Earth are pretty much McDonald's and Burger King, right?
Yeah.
We kill animals as a matter of course, right?
Yeah.
And yes, I'm just looking at RJD on the chat. Hello to RJD. I just want to bring in your comment here because I have the chat in front of you. You say about them being experimentation. I can understand, right? Yeah, okay. I can understand that maybe they're doing some sort of experimentation, but really, like, over the course of this amount of time, if there was like a phenomena, like it was huge in the 90s, right, around the sort of between 96 to about 2005, you'd hear, or even 2010, you'd hear about it a lot. But for it to still be continuing, I don't see like it being I don't see there being what are you gonna be experimenting on? And secondly, why return it? Why return the waste? Because
that is like a CIA tactic.
This, to me, that's more of a psyop. That's more of like a human would do that because of some sort of psychological operation to whether you would do it to sort of like create some sort of panic, to create some sort of problem to create a problem reaction solution phenomena, or also a distraction. So to stop people looking into a certain aspect of ufology, because if you go back into the 90s and the sort of the X-Files generation, the UFO phenomena is a very physical phenomena. We look at it in a sense of beings that are flesh and blood and ships that are made of metal. These days now we are looking a sense more in there being more of a connection to things like psychic phenomena, ESP, and like, to take the X-Files example then, the episode just before the movie, I think it's called Endgame, I think, or The End. The End. Yeah. It's called The End, where you have the boy, the chess prodigy. I don't know how well you know the X-Files, Rich, but
yeah. I was a fan of the older stuff. It started to get a bit. How can I say? Yeah, I didn't watch the last lot.
Well, in just before they brought the movie out, so around about 1998, I think the movie came out in 1998. Well, 97 then, say, right? Because I think it was around about the time when I went to Hereford, they were showing season 6, right? So you're looking about between 96 and 98, right? That episode, Endgame, where you had the chess prodigy, and he had the ability to read people's minds, and they kind of posed the question of this boy could be the link to everything in the X-Files. And at the time, that sounded more sort of far-fetched. And I remember that was the time when people started to drift away from the X-Files, because it was becoming more, in a sense, surrounding the sort of the psychological and the spiritual aspects of the ufology, and less of a a shadow government type thing, and obviously they start just after that in the 6th season. They kind of round off the shadow government arc and go more into like the sort of telepathy, ESP connection in the later years. But as those of us who've looked into ufology are finding now, it does have more of that link to ESP. So like, the cattle mutilations, as you were saying, but is sinister. It doesn't quite fit.
No, it is. I gotta be honest. It's very. I've always found it very. I actually know someone that lives in Brecon who grew up on a farm, and they had their cattle mutilated.
Because
I know, and it was, and they, he said it was frightening. It frightened his parents.
Of course it would be.
Yeah, it would. It's gonna. But the thing is, it's happening.
Yeah.
Now, it's hard to explain that if these sightings, which I said, like I said, this boy witnessed a cow there, 5 minutes later, it's been mutilated. That's a very difficult thing for, humans to pull off. Right, as far as we know.
With the technology that we are aware of, yes.
That we are aware of. Right, because it wasn't just some of the fields they had, they would see these strange lights. They would hear, and this is a weird one, they would hear heavy machinery. So they couldn't see anything, right? They would hear this sound of heavy machinery operating.
We seem to be losing Richard. Richard, we seem to have lost your signal. We're just going to see if we can get Richard back. We seem to be have been losing. Richard, are you with us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you. We got you. You're back.
Yeah, sorry, I was just checking for aircraft. That's pretty bizarre. Heavy machinery.
Well, you've got things like the Bristol hum, haven't you, where people have been hearing like that the low frequency hum noise.
Yeah.
And that's happened around the world, and you've had in the last few years, you've been hearing that sort of sound actually quite a lot around the US, where you've been hearing large booms and like people describing it in various areas around the US. I know Security Team covered this, but not exclusively. That's what I learned of them at the time, was where Security was at its height. But a lot of this was on sort of American news reports where they would hear something very similar. They would hear these large booms, clangs, the sound of industry, but where there was no industry. So that's quite interesting.
Sorry, are we still streaming? Because I've lost the connection to YouTube, and you lost my signal just now, didn't you?
As far as I'm aware, guys, if you can hear me, can you let us know on the chat, please?
Very hard. Both my phone and my tablet have just completely started having a bit of a wonk.
Well, we've obviously, with everything going on around you at the moment, that's quite we seem to be. I'm just going to see if anyone can hear us. If you can let us know on the chat. Oh, thank you. Yeah, we are still streaming. We're still live.
We are still streaming.
Yes.
Right. I've lost.
Thank you, RGG.
Yeah, I have lost everything.
RGJ, sorry. Thank you, Suzanne.
This they called it poltergeist activity, right?
Right, okay.
And there's like one report where they were doing, they would hear strange disembodied voices speaking a language they didn't understand. Okay, it's crop circles in normal meadow grass. They found these holes in these fields that were dug. These are, a couple of, we're talking a lot of dirt were just gone. There was one report where the guy was putting fence posts. He'd moved them about 200 yards. He'd stacked them up. He'd gone in the house for a drink of water, come out, and they were back where he put them. Now that the way they describe that, right, in the Hunt of the Skinwalker Ranch, is basically, it's almost like a time slippage.
Well,
it's quite bizarre.
This is where the other thing I was going to say about the cattle mutilations. Is this some sort of... Well, for lack of a better explanation, is it a natural phenomenon or like some form of distortion? Like what you'd see in Star Trek, where they would have these like time effects where things would happen and they would become distorted
Mm.
because time
Well,
and
it's a
space are being distorted.
well, it would happen in the home, around the home, and there was quite a few reports of this, and this they found, I think, very disturbing, right? Um, the one the final straw for the Shermans, right, was one evening in May 1996. The Shermans were outside with their 3 dogs when they noticed a blue orb darting around, right, in the field near their ranch. So the guy urged his dogs to go after it. The dogs chased and barked at the orb. As they followed into some thick bushes, Sherman heard them make like a terrible yelping, right? And when they called for them, they didn't respond, right? The next morning, he went back out, so the dogs were gone, and he found what he described as 3 greasy lumps, with what appeared to be scorch spots, where the dogs basically were never seen again. I mean, that is quite,
Yeah,
yeah.
I got dogs. Like that's upsetting.
Yeah, that was
That's
if that
upsetting.
was I'm an animal lover. I mean, I would be wow. Especially you got 3 animals I mean, these were working dogs, but you still build a relationship with them.
Yeah,
You do,
I got
right?
2 dogs. Yeah.
Well, that was their final straw. I think that was what you know. I think that the family were obviously at that point.
Don't get me
Were
wrong. I'd be upset with the cattle. I would like
yeah,
because I would build a relationship with that animal. I couldn't be a
yeah,
farmer. I couldn't like I don't eat a lot of beef. I haven't had beef in God years.
yeah.
Even when I had burgers now, it's turkey burgers. But Jesus, man, that's
Yeah, well,
just
it was another 2 years after these terrifying events before the family actually started publicly speaking out. That I mean, this family was going through this in the Skinwalker Ranch, for like 2 years after these events. It's pretty, it's a pretty heavy thing to go through. They claimed
weren't they
unusual.
told? Weren't they told? I think I watched this on a documentary. Weren't they told when they first moved in that they weren't allowed to dig on the land as well? Wasn't that like in the contract?
Well, yeah, I mean, digging on sort of like Indian, like these reservations, right? And these sort of like they were their sacred lands is not a good thing, right? Especially in these Indian burial places they had, right? It's kind of even other cultures that didn't respect the other culture respected that, if you know
Yeah,
what I mean, right?
it's kind of an old like
Yeah,
it's kind of a myth, isn't it, when it comes to things like like even in The Simpsons, it's like it was built on an ancient Indian burial ground.
oh yeah,
That's
yeah.
always been like a thing, isn't it?
Yeah, well, like you've got like the same similar sort of theme in Poltergeist, the film Steven
Yeah,
Spielberg film.
yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah. Where was I? Let me just get back to where I was. Yeah, they publicly spoke out about these unusual. They first appeared in Salt Lake City, Utah Desert News. Right. The alternative weekly Las Vegas has a series of articles by journalist George Knapp's. Right, George Knapp co-authored the sequence authored book which details early investigations into the UFO sightings. Right, so people started to take note of this by now. Right, they've gone right because this family have said all these things. Right.
Yeah.
Which they talked about the cattle mutilations, obviously, and different things.
Yeah.
And let's have a look. What else did they talk about? Right. there was these magnetic fields, right?
Yeah.
That they were picking up the crop circles, Bigfoot-like creatures, poltergeist activity, right? The Shermans planned to sell the property. However, before they got chance, Robert Bigelow, right, a millionaire businessman, and a believer in UFOlogy, right, founded the I don't know if I'm going to get this right. It's the National Institute for Discovery of Science. They called it something else, right? An abbreviation of that, right? And they sent me at UFO. He threw £1 million, right, at UFO like researchers,
Okay.
and apparently they just wasted this money, right? And he got a bit fed up with it, right?
Okay.
So he set up this institute himself, and he bought the property.
Right. Okay.
Right. Bigelow bought the ranch for £200,000. Right.
Well, it'd be dollars, wouldn't it?
Yeah, $200,000. Sorry. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Okay.
On a non-disclosure agreement with the Shermans. Right. Who agreed to take agreed not to talk further about the events on the ranch. And then he sort of like turned it into, he put cameras. He had like dog pens. He had lookout towers. I mean, this guy threw his money at it, right? And there's so many reports, and it talks about this in the documentary about Bigelow, that he was in cahoots with this, and he was part of this, and he was a drug dealer, and he was this. Apparently, he was just a UFO enthusiast, and he wanted to know answers. Right? That's the basis of it. That's what people who knew him have said.
Yeah.
Right? He set up all these like investigation scientists. I mean, these scientists work for like some of the biggest names in the world, like the CIA. You know what I mean? These were real scientists, who've been handpicked, right? 24-hour-a-day investigation, right? Collecting evidence and witnesses and searching. I mean, they didn't leave a stone unturned, right? The purpose of the study was to advance the study of various fringe sciences and paranormal topics, including UFO, cattle mutilation. The National Institute of Discovery Science was disbanded in 2004. Right? So there was, and this guy now, this other millionaire has bought the ranch now. Right?
Okay.
Which I haven't gone much into because it's in the new search for the Skinwalker. Right? The secret, of the Skinwalker Ranch.
Okay.
Harry Reid sends $22 million to Robert Bigelow for the UFO study.
Jesus.
22 million, let alone what Bigelow spent. Right? This is an incredible paranormal investigation into a localized area. I mean, it's incredible. The new series is incredible. The stuff they're showing the stuff, the evidence they're gathering. I think it's only, I'm on episode 6.
Right.
And I'm hooked.
Yeah.
I'm genuinely hooked. Right? Apparently the report investigators which reported unidentified flying objects was run by the military intelligence officials, right, from the Pentagon, and shadowed the program, largely funded at the request of Henry Reid. So this guy, they give him the 22 million. It's
so what, they had Pentagon officials there who were actively working for the government, or were they like former government employees?
Actively.
Right. Okay.
So they don't go to that. I mean, this is in the big leagues now, right?
Okay.
Let's have a look. Where are we? Well, they're saying he was who was long-term and had an interest in the space phenomena. Now, one of the things they find in this show, right, because we've done a lot with EMFs, Jazz, right, because we obviously found this signal, right,
Yeah, okay.
and we found it on different locations. Well, it's one of the big reports that's coming out of the Skinwalker Ranch is these anomalous EMF readings and other radiation readings, because people have been getting radiation burns to the point where they have developed cancer.
Right, okay.
And they've gone back to investigate this the next day, and the radiation has gone. Now, obviously, there has been nuclear tests, in that region of the world for a long time.
Yeah.
But these things are sporadic. 1 minute they're in a point, the next minute that point has no background radiation at all. To go from the extreme of causing someone, physical burns, and then leading to cancer, to having no background radiation, you just can't fathom it.
No.
And this is some of the evidence that is coming out. It's insane, right? There was an article released in the New York Times in 2017 when the story broke.
Yeah.
The Department of Defense officially confirmed the government-funded program, right?
Okay.
So, there's something, it is without question, genuinely something going on, right? What Bigelow basically, he has files and files and tapes, right? And I think they deemed it classified, right? Today, as part of the study remains classified. This is what it says by her. Today, part of the study remains classified. The Department of Defense has never officially acknowledged the existence of the program, but interestingly, it does admit that the program was shut down, which is mad, in 2012.
So it doesn't it doesn't admit its existence, but it admits it shut it down.
Yeah. Right. So
So that's like me saying I admit that I don't admit that I went to my house. I don't admit that I went to the shop, but I admit leaving.
Here's the stuff I bought. Yeah, here's the stuff I bought.
Yeah.
It's like it's crazy.
Yeah.
Basically it says Bigelow, right? Advanced Space Study lost its funding from the Department of Defense, right?
Right. Okay.
As the advanced aviation threatened, it says threatened the program contract expired.
So basically, it was under a timed thing, and that actually expired over time. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
basically.
What else have you got there to go through, or have we got through most of your material, or?
Pretty much we've got through. As I'm looking at it now, we have nearly pretty much come to the end. Right. It says in the meantime the ranch was sold. Rumors for 4.5 million.
Jesus.
4.5 million in 2016.
Jesus.
Yeah, to Administrative Holdings, Bigelow's company, then disbanded its security team, but it was quickly replaced by the new owner. Let's have a look. Rackham Public Road. Oh, the ranch was illegally gated, right? Later that year.
Right.
Administration. Let's have a look. Approach. Location claim. Oh, they basically put a trespass order on the ranch. So if you get caught there, right, you're in big trouble, and declared it as a privately owned road. But at the
Jesus.
moment, there's a guy that's making the new show. He has bought the ranch. But they're estimating he bought it for £4.5 million.
Bloody hell. That's just
Yeah.
incredible.
There is no access to the property today, and the gates blocked entrance with a large warning sign. And that is the last bit of paper I've got to, because I didn't, like I said, they found this reading, right? They found these anomalous readings, but the crazy part about it is where they found the source of these bizarre readings, right? Which I will
Okay.
go into. I know it. So if you're going to watch it, this is a bit of a spoiler alert. Okay, they have found them a mile above the ranch, and they've actually pinpointed them, and they've gone to some lengths to test their theory. And well, like I say, you need to see the show to see what happens, but it is amazing. It is actually amazing. And they got this guy, the security guy on there called Dragon, and he is as serious a character as you will ever meet, right? Because it's one of his jobs is to protect the new team of scientists
Right.
who are there, right? Because one of the gentlemen who was part of the show, it tells the story of the very first episode, dug a hole, and a medical thing happened to him, which by any stretch of the imagination is bizarre. You know, I mean,
So,
and
let's
they're all having these things.
let's come away from the show at the moment because we don't want to spoil it for people, and quite frankly, I've not seen it yet, and I don't want it spoiled. So,
Yeah.
what sort of round this off then for the last sort of 10 minutes of this show, because we've now gone past the kind of the hour mark. And thank you for presenting that, Richard. That's really insightful and really interesting. And I didn't really know a great deal about the SkinWalker Ranch. But like having we've talked about the cattle mutilations now and some of the these different boiling pots of paranormal activity, and through our own research we can derive links between things like, for example, the case that the most infamous case that you investigated, the Cardiff case, the curse case, then, where we had several different aspects of the paranormal all occurring at one time. But my question is, what do you think, in your opinion, after everything you've seen in research, what do you think is going on there? Or what sort of hypothesis would you like to see tested, or to sort of offer some sort of explanation to this?
Well, I think very similar to the case in Cardiff, it's basically a perfect paranormal storm. You have the Navajo and the Ute, right? Which obviously the Navajo were betrayed by the Ute, and they cursed the land. Knowing that they've got these cave systems there, right? I think it was a paranormal hotspot because the claims go back centuries for UFOs and different things, right? So it was one of them sort of nexus points, right?
Okay.
Because, I mean, they've reported these creatures coming out of these lights in the sky. The lights disappearing, these creatures just run off into the night. I mean, that would scare most people to death, right?
That would scare me.
Yeah,
I don't
right?
scare easily on investigation, but
That would scare the best of us.
Yeah,
right?
that would piss me off.
Yeah, especially if you're up a mountain and you are terrified, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a perfect paranormal stewpot. I think you have the ancient, you've got ley lines there, you've got this background radiation and anomalous readings, which by some sort is either, like I said, it's either portals, or there's something ancient there in the ground. Because if you look at the Bob Lazar documentary, they found ship, and they said these ships were from the past. These aren't new ships. These were ships that were buried and dug up, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So I think you have the Navajo, which did something to the land. They knew about this stuff because they were in tune with the land. And they knew about these anomalous readings and these nexus points and different things, and they obviously cursed it because they were like, because of what happened to them. You've got, when you have very closely linked to the paranormal and these anomalous readings, they're very closely linked to, to EMFs, so these random EMF signals and the paranormal, they do seem to coincide. So you take all that into account, and their ancient beliefs, and the UFOs. I think you've just got, like I said, the perfect, like a paranormal storm. And I think one is creating the other, and that one is aiding that one. And, human activity in that area is just causing all this carnage. And I think, I like I said, the cat and mutilations is sinister, right?
But are they though?
Well,
hear me out there a second, right? Because when I'm sitting here and I'm listening to this, and I'm sort of sitting back, right? We are assuming, right, that there is a conscious intent. Now, I don't know a lot about cat and mutilations, but we are assuming a conscious intent behind them.
Yeah.
Right? What if that isn't? What if it's actually what you're seeing is more of a warping of space then that is actually distorting the bodies and making it look that way?
Well, I thought about it earlier, and I thought if there is a crossover, right? If there is a point, because people have seen circles in the sky over the ranch, and there's different sky.
Yeah.
It looks like a completely different sky, and they feel like it's a different place as well. And then all of a sudden, these objects sort of pop through, like UFOs or these creatures. Now, if you got, you might have a different animal species on this point. So if you just imagine a cow sort of appearing in another universe where they have way more, sort of different predators to us.
Yeah.
Because they're not finding blood. So maybe the animals are being attacked by a creature that is, that's how it eats. That's what it just does. They might drink the blood of the animal, or it might suck it dry. Do you know what I mean?
That's what I'm kind of more sort of looking into. Is
Yeah.
Because if this was like E.T. coming down and feasting on cattle, like...
They would take the cow.
Yeah, they wouldn't give it back.
And no, they wouldn't drop it back off where they found it. It makes absolute no sense in that sort of realm, right? Because it's sort of like they wouldn't, for one, if that was happening, why would they let us know what they're up to?
Yeah.
Right? Because they're going to think, they've seen, they must have they must know what we like as a species. We're pretty, we are a kind of fighting species, like, we live on one rock and we can't share it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So, we build weapons and we turn science into weapons. So, yeah, in that stretch, I think there's I think it is more the fact that it's something else, right? Yeah. Or it could be a primitive creature. It doesn't necessarily mean just because it comes through a dimensional hole doesn't mean it necessarily is intelligent.
Well, no, that was what I was thinking. Is it? I was thinking more like that, as you said. Is that's how that creature eats?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we're only going based off on our human knowledge. We know there are creatures beyond.
But Emma's just said, but maybe they're examining the bodies because obviously the cattle breathe oxygen, and maybe they don't.
Yeah, that's another one. RJD, I think it's RJD. Sorry, it's a bit hard to read. RJD says maybe there are interdimensional poachers just taking the parts that they want and leaving the carcass. But then why return it? That's the point. Why go to the effort of returning it? Just,
Well, these things have just been placed. There's no tracks leading up to them. They've just sort of been placed there, and they've been placed quite, in some cases, quite ritualistic. It is odd. I'm not going to say it's not odd.
But then, if you have a rudimentary sort of species or rudimentary consciousness, right? You would have done that anyway. In a sense, perhaps in their culture, if it is like an interdimensional doorway to another planet or something, right? Like a wormhole, for example, right? Is that their way of giving thanks? Like, for example, in a way that if certain cultures will obviously will butcher the cow, but there are ways of giving thanks or blessing it. Halal meat, for example, or I'm not so up on the sort of the cultural sort of significance of that.
Is it to hide their scientific study? Is another, are they mutilating the animals, and because there's no blood found, and they've tested this, they've dropped blood into the ground to see how long it would take to soak away, and it's been there for days.
Well, yeah, blood is quite violent.
Are they hiding their scientific, what they're doing scientifically? Are they mutilating the animal after they've done their experiments, so it doesn't look like they've done experiments, if you know what I mean?
But then, why return the animal anyway?
If you think of intelligence, right? If all of a sudden, say, 15 of your cows went missing, which are most tagged, right? And now in some cases they're chipped, right? Maybe it's because it's leading you down a different road. Maybe it is to create fear. Maybe they want you to be a little bit afraid because they don't want you to know what they're up to. Because their blood is being removed, right? There's no blood. So, and they know people would investigate if 15 of their best cattle went missing. They'd be going to the next farm, and the next farm they get the police involved, they get this involved.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, though, dude, they are still appearing out of nowhere with no tracks. Those investigations would be fruitless.
Well, yeah, but it's still disbanded. You have the people saying, well, it's just animals, isn't it? Or it's just this and it, or it's just, if it was actual.
That's my point, right? I'm trying to sort of, if we apply human intelligence to this, because we assume, right? Because it looks, it's pretty gruesome, right? It's pretty sinister.
Yeah.
We are assuming absolutely. There is an intelligence behind it because of the fear reaction it's provoking in us, right?
Yeah.
But that's on us.
Yeah.
That's us putting a point on a view that we don't know or understand, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if that is ET, right?
Yeah.
There's three options here I can think of. First of all, it's man. We're using a technology we don't know or understand, and it's used to create fear, right? To me, that sounds, unless you want to create some sort of domino effect. Like, for example, we don't really have a pandemic of cattle mutilations. They are still, on the whole, few and far between. They are not... They are, maybe you could think there's about, in an area the size of Wales then, which is, a reasonably small principality, country, region, area, right? It's not exactly a large thing that's been happening on the scale of people knowing, understanding it. It's not like it happens. It's a risk of having it happening in a farm near you. The risk of a cattle mutilation is quite minimal, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like creating that type of fear. right?
Yeah.
Like essentially, in a sense, what we're seeing being created now, and I'm not going to go into that because we're keeping that out of this discussion, but in that sort of psyop kind of sense where it's not modifying behavior on a massive scale, right?
Yeah.
These are normally isolated farms, right? Even
Yeah.
in the community, you look at the farms in the Rhondda, for example, where we live,
No.
right? They are still reasonably isolated in the sense of they are, a good 10-minute walk away from any reasonable civilization. Okay? Okay, so they're still kind of reasonably isolated. So
Yeah.
there's no real, other than scaring the piss out of some farmers, there's no sort of, as far as I can tell, reasonable way that should be happening. Right?
Yeah.
If it's E.T., then again, the similar thing applies. Right? Man could return, you could argue that man would return the carcass, right? Because to create fear, to start something else from happening, to create this, create that. It could be a ritualized thing. So someone using, like you were seeing, like, whether they're using the animal to curse the land or to create a certain impact on an area, but still doesn't make a lot of sense unless they're rural. Now, what would be interesting to see is if you could plot the points where cattle mutilations have been reported and see if they have any sort of form of geographical pattern. Are they, like, for example, as Gary Jones highlighted a couple of weeks ago, a correlation between quarries and UFO sightings, a correlation between ancient sites and UFO sightings, a correlation between are they creating a pentagram, for argument's sake? I'm being a little bit facetious here, right? But are they creating the upside down horned demon over a large period, a plot of land?
Is it a message to the authorities? This that sort of thing to it. Like, they're obviously scaring us, but are they more interested in scaring a certain type of people? There's so many factors to this cattle mutilation that I find bizarre. It is a big, it's not, the reason behind it is not delved into enough, I think.
Well, it's I think that is because you look at alien abduction, right? And you've got some alien abduction that do seem to be quite sinister, right?
Yeah.
But a large percentage of alien abduction cases, right, when actually gone through hypnosis, and as the hypnosis techniques have evolved, they've actually found that once you get past the fear barrier, the abduction is not actually, or the encounter, then, the alien encounter is not actually what they believe it is originally, right?
No.
Because with hypnosis, there is a large amount of confabulation, and the mind will take one part of a memory that doesn't belong there and will fill in the gap. So they will apply it's the same with precognition, right?
Yeah.
When I've had a precognitive experience, it's very hard to take away the emotions you're feeling now and not apply them to the future event. When these events have happened, I actually had one last night in a dream, and I spoke to the person who appeared in the dream, and it was a dream about an event which is a really emotional event. And now it was like I was looking at it, and it was like I woke up and I was wondering why I didn't feel emotional about it, and it's because I knew at that point in the dream I'd kind of accepted it was going to happen. I accepted that the inevitability of that event, because it was an inevitable event that I was seeing. I knew it would upset me at some point, but I knew that I had come through that point of it upsetting me, and the purpose of me seeing that dream was to let me know that that was going to happen, and what I needed to do to make sure that I wouldn't have as much emotional impact as I hadn't had the dream. So it's very hard. Like, obviously, when you have these conscious sort of encounters, the emotional stuff, if worked through properly, you can get to a point of understanding. With this, with the cattle mutilation, for example, that sort of side of it, there is also a side of this that is quite hostile. You know, like you said, what happened to the dogs? So I am more inclined to this being a supernatural, natural phenomena. A phenomena maybe without conscious reason. In a sense, a distortion, a place where maybe reality has become slightly damaged in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. Well, I'm more drawn towards the fact, right? And I don't want this to sound neg, right?
You always go down the neg route, man.
I know, but the thing is, right? It just because they've traversed the universe, or they have wormholes, or they have this technology, doesn't automatically mean they're friends, right?
Yeah, I understand that.
It doesn't, right?
No.
And there is a really sinister side to the UFO phenomena, and there is these reports. Like, if you look at the stranger at the Pentagon, he said he was fleeing. He said he was fleeing a race. There was different races at the Pentagon who had fled other races who were not so nice.
Well, we've been told that ourselves by, it's on this channel.
Maybe they just are, they just dumping it off because they want to create fear. It is just because of that fact, or they go on the waste on their ships, or the waste near where they are, or they're doing experiments, because there is that. If you look at Fire in the Sky, I mean, you look at his experience.
Travis Walton.
Yeah, if you look at his experience of being abducted, it's horrific. It's horror. It's worse than a horror film.
He actually has come out and said about that he actually the film made it a lot more horrific than it actually was, and he, again, going back through it, has made sort of a lot more peace with it. I was watching an interview with him the other day, in fact, and he was saying what he actually experienced compared to what he actually is shown in the film is two different things.
Yeah, but at any stretch, being taken whilst asleep on a ship, and then having machines sort of like take samples of you, or put implants in you, or being probed, or is sinister.
Of course it is. I'm not denying that.
Yeah, it's sinister, right? So maybe they are just sinister, just because like I said, we have sinister people in our world. Yeah. There's a good chance. You had Hawkins was a firm believer that beings would be very similar, have a very similar mindset to us, and he worried about that.
Well, you are a contactor. You've been doing basically CE5 before CE5 ever existed, my friend, and you've obviously spoke at length on this channel about your experiences with these beings.
Yes.
Have you ever picked up anything sinister from the Council of 12, or from from? I know obviously they've tested you.
The being, the first encounter I had, the first time I ever meditated, I gotta be honest, I did. And I had dreams after which were of a sinister nature, right? Just because of the fact, and I had this conversation with the council as well. I've never really spoke about it because it is that kind of, it's bad, basically. And it was the way we treat animals on Earth. And it was
Yeah.
basically, there's beings that would see us very much the same and
Yeah.
treat us very much the same.
Yeah.
And if we, to see that would be horrific, but to them, we are just a lower life form. And they would treat us the same. They would hook us up on machines and just slit our throats. That's the conversation. That's the way the conversation went. And I was like,
But that's a
wow.
conversation. Did they actually say that? Did you get the vibe of that? They told you there was beings like that. Understandably, there probably would be bad.
Yeah. The vibe was they were trying to infiltrate our world, and they were in cahoots with certain people on this planet. Was the gist I was given, and they, with all their might, they're trying to stop them.
So, Night Moth asks, what are they trying to say or show us with regards to the SkinWalker Ranch? What's the lessons that we can sort of derive from this story, my friend?
Well, the world isn't just what you perceive, and you get a lot of people I've noticed on Facebook, right? And you've got there's a lot of people, and they have a belief system, right?
Yeah.
And some of them have come through religion in a really negative way, and they've gone down the scientific route, and they are religious. They hate religion. They see negative in believing in God and believing in religion, right?
Yeah.
But the neg is towards the dickheads that taint religion.
Yeah.
It's not towards religion itself. If you actually really look at it, there's only a few really important messages in religion, and that's love each other, don't kill each other. It boils down to them two principles. You can narrow religion down to them two principles. If you're a good person and you're good to others, and others are good to you, you'll have a good life. If you're horrible to others and others are horrible to you, you're gonna have a pretty shitty life. It's that simple. You can equate it to it. You can make a big picture out of it. You can make a great big book out of it, right? And fill it with absolute mentalness, right? But it still boils down to that simple principle, right? And Carl Sagan summed it up, right, with this kind of thing. He said, if you make science and spirituality mutually exclusive, you do a disservice to both.
Absolutely.
No, I like that.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I like that, right? We're all, us as paranormal investigation, as investigators, people in the UFO community, people in the witch community, people in the religious community. We're all like we've talked about. You're all looking at the same picture, just from different angles. This is. I think this is the message in SkinWalker Ranch, is that there is something else going on, and why it's kept secret is beyond me, right? Why these people feel like they need to control it and have power over it, and because they do, unfortunately, they want it for sinister means. They want it for people who have money, they want to be immortal, or they want to be this, or they want to live forever, or they want technology to leave the world because they know in the long run, if they continue down the road they're going to balls the world up. That is an agenda. Self-preservation is a thing. It's an actual physical, mental state. Yeah. So I think that's the lessons from it. We're not alone in the universe. There are beings out there like what I encountered, the Council of 12. They are looking for answers. They were looking for the spiritual and physical connection for themselves to communicate with that being and learn from that being. because they had made mistakes in their species and cultures. And all these different beings had made the same mistakes we've made. And in 2004, when I did a documentary called Interview with Ghost Hunters, I think it was then, I said the one message that Spirit have told me since I've learned to talk to them is don't make the same mistakes we did. Please stop it. Stop making the same. All that is just nonsense when you become energy. When you move into that new existence before you come back here, all that information comes flooding back to you of what you really are, which is energy. That's what was the first thing in the universe. Before matter was energy. That is where, our creation was first born. And it's kind of like, there's such a big, it opens up such a big question. If you really look at it, like, you can be afraid of it, yeah. If I was on SkinWalker Ranch, I'd lose my mind. I'd be like a kid, it's like they call it a paranormal Disneyland, apparently. And I would be like, I could spend 2 weeks in SkinWalker Ranch, as scary as it is. It would be my version of heaven to investigate SkinWalker Ranch. Do you know what I mean? Because there's so much we can learn about our universe, ourselves, our history. Everything is there. What's beyond us. It's everything. And I think that's what it's trying to teach us. I think it's trying to teach us that there's so much more to this world and us.
Well, I think we'll leave that there, my friend, unless you've got anything further you want to
add. No, I think I pretty much...
That's a good place to end. That's a good place to end.
Let's end on a jolly note. This is stop. If you see people doing that in these groups and they're nagging on other people because they talk about God or Jesus, or they talk about this, don't do it. Don't nag it out. It doesn't matter. That's their opinion. If you embrace that opinion, you might learn a bit more about what you're trying to find out. Like I said, it's the same picture from a different angle. It's got to stop. I've said it 3 times, I think, in the last 3 days. I said, you just give a big speech about negativity in this certain subject, and your speech was so negative towards that belief. You're saying exactly the same thing you think they are saying.
Exactly.
And it's got to stop. It's just got, it really has. We've got to all start singing from the same hymn sheet. We really have. Like, I've dealt with prejudice towards my beliefs pretty much all my life, but that's never going to deter me from what I do. We meet people of different backgrounds, and we really are singing. We really are. Like I said, we're on the same path. We're just side by side.
Well, guys, thank you very much for watching and listening to this. Again, if you like what we do, subscribe to the channel, share this video with your friends. And next week, I believe we are going to have a special guest on the show. Am I right with that, Richard?
Yes, we are. We are going to have Kaz, hopefully from the Pentagon incident.
Kaz Clark is the original witnesser of the Penturk incident. The lady that took 3 lie detector tests. The best lie detector test you can actually do on planet Earth, apparently, and passed all of them. And she is going to be giving us her insight into the Penturk incident and everything over the course of the next 2 weeks, because behind the scenes I am going through the Now investigation stuff and working on the Paranormal Now website. So over the next couple of weeks we are going to be highlighting some of our past things that we've done on the Now debates, most notably Gary Jones. We're going to be breaking down some of his videos from the presentations coming out very, very shortly. And if any of you guys are interested in any cases that you would like us to look into, or if you have a case that you've investigated yourself, or a subject matter you would like to come on and talk to us about, or you want to get in touch with us for any way, shape or form, the email address is paranormalnow@outlook.com. I will also put, when this goes live, the links to all our stuff in the description below. Facebook is facebook.com/paranormalnow. The website, which is at the present moment going to be going through a large addition, because we're going to be putting some resources on there over the course of maybe the next month before it gets to a point where I want it. Maybe 2 months. So it's going to be a little bit while yet, guys, because there's a lot of work happening behind the scenes at the moment. Because we're going through a lot of our Council of 12 stuff, and we're going to be presenting that in coming weeks as well. And there's a lot of stuff happening to us personally, Richard, with you and the activity you're still having in your area. I'm going through a lot of the stuff that I've had with my brother. So there's going to be a lot happening on this channel in the coming weeks. So guys, thank you very much for your support. Thank you very much for being part of these shows, being part of our journey, and Paranormal Now at Outlook.com, ParanormalNowInvestigations.com. Again, links will be in the description below. Thank you so much for being part
Thanks
of this
for guys
journey.
in the chat as well. Thank you for your your interesting comments.
Absolutely.
I'd love to answer your questions. I do believe there's somebody asking about. Am I wrong? Somebody asking about magic mushrooms? Jazz?
I don't know.
Have a look at the chat a minute. Sorry, just before we go.
Thanks, guys. I don't know. I'm trying to. Do you feel that eating magic mushrooms, Welsh ones, might open up our consciousness? We haven't done a now debate on psychedelics.
No, we haven't.
That could be a good one, because I've not taken psychedelics. You have.
Yes.
I don't. I have used marijuana spiritually. I won't use anything else because marijuana doesn't have to open me up. I'm a firm believer that yes, you can, under the right circumstances, if you get a couple of bags of mushrooms with the boys and have them that way, then it doesn't work. I personally feel if you're gonna do it, go down the shamanic route. Do it. Get someone who does it that way to take you down that journey.
Do it safely controlled. Make sure you pick the right ones, mind. And that's something we actually could do a now debate on. I think we actually could do an interesting now debate on that, Jazz.
Yeah, I think that would be,
because this interesting research coming out about psilocybin, and the fact that it apparently on the tests they've done, it has an amazing effect on depression. So it could be worth a now debate.
Well, if you don't mind having a look into that, maybe in the coming weeks, my friend, we could book that.
I have just shared a post about it, my friend, on Bookbase. So yes, I will. I would love to talk about it.
If you start looking into that, maybe for a fortnight's time, and we will book that in for a fortnight's time. I'm probably the wrong person to talk about it because I don't know a lot about it. If there's anyone here that could listening to this that knows anything about psychedelics, perhaps we'll reach out and see if we can find someone that knows a bit about this and that can actually speak out about it, and we can have them on as a guest. We'll look into that, guys, and we will speak to you about that in the coming weeks, and we'll see what we can find.
Yeah, but thanks, guys, for coming on the chat, and we love your questions. They're amazing.
Well, you take care of yourselves, guys. We'll see you soon for another now debate, for another video. There'll be a video coming up tomorrow of the Welsh orbs from Gary Jones. That's going to be amazing. Look out for that. And we will be uploading some stuff over the next few days. But we'll see you live, barring any breaking news, as things are going, developing quite quickly at the moment. Next Wednesday. Take care.